All right. Oh, and a couple more stragglers. All right. Okay. Happy Sunday, everybody. I am excited to bring back IndigoAngel. She was in the portal. Oh man, it's been over a year, hasn't it?
I think it has been. Yeah.
So what's been happening in your world? I know you've been traveling, you've got courses and projects you're releasing. Let's catch up.
Yeah, let's catch up. So it's really good to be here and thank you so much for having me back. Currently my focus has shifted into a lot of course creation. So right now I just came out of doing the Gridwork Facilitator 2.0 course that we just wrapped up yesterday, which is where we I guess we train people who are ready for the next wave of ascension, like they're ready for to take their mastery into avatar land shamanism, basically, which is um, I think it's really a new earth spiritual technology in which we can tap into to restore the degraded spiritual aspects of the land, areas in which have been known to be reversal stargates, reversal locations where there's just a lot of, detrimental energy essentially to humanity. Places like, Vatican, Washington, D.C. These are some bigger cities and reversal locations that I've deep dive and decoded on my channel. I don't know if we've spoken since I did a boots on the ground mission work in Washington, D.C.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. And I know you went to the Vatican as well, right?
Mhm. Prior to
So
DC. So yeah, I did two reversal sites in a row. It was
yeah,
intense.
for those who aren't familiar with reversal sites, could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So basically, everywhere on Earth and on the land, I mean, it's organic, right? Essentially, because it's made up of the Earth's spiritual energy, the Earth's biospiritual uh, mechanics and matter, essentially. But what happens is, or what's been happening for a very long time on this Earth, is that there have been invader, ETs that have basically come in and have hijacked the resources. Basically, it's one of their, goals, within everything that they come here to do with the organic human biology and all of this. But, they come in for the resources, they hijack these, areas that are high energy vortex sites, essentially. And they basically degrade the land. I mean, that's kind of what's happening. There's a lot of planetary weaponry that gets installed, and they start to weaken the electromagnetic field. It basically kills all of the land spirits. They hijack and host off the vortex sites and utilize it and funnel it into their reversal intentions and reversal spins and basically distort and hijack it. And it
Is that sort of like when during the Spanish conquest of like Central and South America, where many of the what do you call it, priests and things would come in and build churches on top of sacred land, where the indigenous had ceremonies and things, and they literally
Mm.
demolish their temples, build the churches right in the same spot, and then put a symbol of the sun in the entrance to try to lure and entice people to go in there. But it seems like the intention was quite different than what the original intention of that property is. Is it something like that?
Absolutely. I mean, you can
Okay.
see how it came in through an invading force,
Right.
hijacked it, and then used or reversed the energy, for a self-serving intent, to that agenda. And yeah, I mean, there's been many trigger events that have happened throughout history. I think some of the biggest ones that have come through, I mean, historically, that are major markers that have played the biggest role in the degradation of like the human consciousness, the war over consciousness in general. I think some of the original things were, there were a lot of ethnic cleansing, you know, genocidal acts, Holocaust acts. I mean, some of these things would be the major things. There was definitely a lot of ethnic cleansing that took happen in Lemuria. Basically, there was a big deception that came in during that timeline, where they kind of broke up a lot of the Lemurian and Pacific Islanders. And this is a big deal because the beings in that time were 12th dimensional soul bodies. So they had like the original human angelic soul imprint within them, meaning that they had the highest level of grid worker technology, avatar land shamanism. They could actually access inner gate sites, and they could cleanse and extract evil out of the core of the planet. So they were like the planetary guardians, basically, like in human form. These were a lot of angelic embodied souls. When the invader races came up, a lot of them came up subterranean, like you've heard about the reptilians and the Dracos and the Anunnaki and the ETs and the Zetas, the Greys, all of this. So they're all running like factions and coalitions and stuff with one another. A lot of the you know, people that were connected to this at that time were like the Sumerian groups, the Tothian groups, things like this. They're kind of some of the spirits that came into these Pacific Islands, the original Lemurians, and they basically they took the men, they castrated them, they took the women and they force breeded them, basically with the bloodline of the serpent Anunnaki race line, and also force bred them with the Nephilim. So this caused a lot of the like sexual gender misery to be born, basically. And this really came out right out the gate, since the human origin creation story began with Adam and Eve. Eve was immediately subjected to forced breeding. They said that Cain and Abel was actually born through a forced breeder program. And this was why they were so destructive. So unfortunately, this plays a huge role. All of this, everything that we're talking about, plays a huge role into what we're dealing with today, ultimately, and why we're trying to restore these spiritual technologies to help try to like aid the spiritual evolution of humanity and cleanse the, you know, the really crazy stuff that's going on.
And that's sort of a lot of that is a lot of your work is sort of going into the details of all of these. Like before we were talking a lot about implants and other codes or traumas that humanity has sort of been through over, you know, the eons of its existence. So you're sort of going in and what is your process for unraveling the spider web of trauma?
There's definitely a process to it. There's definitely a method to the spiritual madness. And this is what I go about in the coursework, is teaching people how to, you know, how do you choose the sites in which you want to work on, you know, how do you build that itinerary? It's a lot of studying of cartography, maps, all of the sacred sites, vortices, megalithic sites, pyramid networks. Where are the stargates located? Where are the ley lines running? Where are organic resources? What can we tap into to restore certain aspects of the land? Just an example of this is yesterday in the remote session, we had tuned into modern day Iraq and actually found the location of the Tower of Babel and kind
Oh,
of,
wow.
yeah, it's still there.
In Iraq. Okay.
Yeah, it's still
Wow.
there. I think there's actually a visitor center there that people can go to ancient Babylon and take like, I don't know if it's open to the public. I haven't like researched the 3D dynamic aspect of it, but just from like an observative lens or like a remote view lens, there was a lot that we had tuned in there. You know, there's still a lot of destruction codes that I think run within the land. Separation codes, the fall of man programming is definitely running there, victimizer programs, you know, a lot of conquer, you know, conquer and destroy. A lot of that energy is still very active. We connected this site energetically to Gobekli Tepe, and
Wow.
because Göbekli Tepe is not too actually far from it. And then we drew a line over to Baalbek, I think it was in Lebanon. We realized between this, it created like a Trinity vortex. And within that, there was actually almost like a black wormhole that was funneling energy there within, right into Palmyra or like Syria. So we just tuned into it as best we could as a group. Yeah, conquer and divide. Thank you, Kirsten. That's what I meant to say. And we worked to kind of collapse that black hole system down as much as possible, tried to redirect energies and extract anything that felt, super nefarious. The whole point of it is to kind of stand as an observer of the consciousness that's running there, and then try to upgrade the consciousness of that land, plug back the natural and organic resources, and just do a lot of reparation and rehabilitation on the timeline as well. We're like psychically and energetically accessing those timelines to just try to bring planetary and humanitarian relief to a lot of it. When we tuned into Göbekli Tepe, we immediately were drawn into the cave systems. There was a lot of star and celestial energy that was being downloaded from the three Stymphalian birds. So we connected in with a lot of the Lyran and Cygnus and Aquilin energy, which has a lot to do with, the original egg, so I really do feel like Göbekli is a human origin location. I think there's multiple on the earth though. That one, we know it's a very ancient archaeological site going back 12,000 years, but we really connected it to the, indigo Neanderthal. And then also the vibration of Adam and Eve was coming up from it as well. Seeing that like human origins came up from the caves. And this also may be where like the clay human, which was a part of the original human design, that this could have came up from these cave systems. And so we were just getting a lot of spiritual codes around the original separation, the original gender split, why the separation codes had to happen for humanity to understand certain things that I think was designed to evolve the consciousness here. But then ultimately seeing the intruder and negative ET forces and how they implemented the stories with Adam and Eve, and the programming in which they wanted to serve humanity ultimately was the subservience of Eve to Adam and all of these things. But really what we were seeing is that the gender split was a simultaneous thing that occurred, and that a lot of this was distorted, but this ultimately came from a negative ET involvement, which we were seeing and picking up came from the Zeta race line, which seems to be tied into this through some information we were getting going back to the Tara timeline or the Tyrannosaurus timelines, which was a seventh dimensional Earth, which was prior to Tiamat, prior to 5D Earth, in which we experience now. Some of the original human origin lines being hybridized with another galactic species called the Zionites. The Zionites seem to have some sort of deals with the Zetas. This is what all the stuff where like, it's kind of been a whole whirlwind all week. A lot of information's been coming in. I've been getting a lot. I've been just blown up over here.
That's awesome. No, yeah,
Yeah.
I love all the different storylines. So the Zionites, what about them? Are they related to the Zionist?
Yes, this is very much what we were picking up on, that it has something to do with this race supremacy line and the controller abilities as to what those race lines have here now on the planet. That they're either hybridized with the Zetas, or they're either subservient to the Zetas, is what we were getting. And
when
that
you say Zeta, you mean the grays, but there's different, from my research, there's tons of different versions of the grays, the Zetas. There's, I think we have a blanket term for them, but there's, ones that are a little more evolved and not so malevolent. And then there's the more malevolent type as well.
Well, I think, yes. The Zeta Reticuli
Mhm.
particularly would be more of the intrusive and invader alien race line being more draconian. I think they're hybridized draconian, and they have a lot of facets in the Orion Regalian star system, and also the Thuban draconian system, and
Wow,
also out of this universe system as well.
new terms that are getting thrown around there. So maybe we can unpack some of those. But before we get too deep into the weeds there, for those who might be new to your work, I know you're a student of Ashiana Dean's, and I'm wondering if you could explain some of your background, your and your teacher Ashiana and her teachings, and some of the others. Let's because I know we're going deep, and then I realized, wait, we have some new folks here that may have not heard the story before, so let's just do a quick intro for our new folks.
Sure. I've been, I've been dealing with abduction ever since I was a child. I didn't realize that's what it was. So I've actually been making more connections to those things now, actually more recently, which is really interesting. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of I don't want to call it infiltration, but I guess messengers and things that happen from a child. So that was a part of my initiation and my awakening. Of course, didn't put a lot of those pieces together until I had some things happen in adulthood that really kind of brought forth my awakening. And so I've been, super awakened for the last 10 years, basically. That awakening process in the beginning led me down an interesting path of connecting with a lot of guardian races and guardian celestial systems that seem to rapidly upgrade my intellect and my consciousness. And so that led me to the materials in which I started to find and studies, because it's just like, as you awaken to this information, the people and the teachers seem to come forward all of a sudden having no idea that this stuff exists, but because you're, aligned to it energetically and your DNA blueprint is activated, you're manifesting it, you're pulling it into alignment to your reality. So I found Ashana Dean's work initially, and she is a very interesting person.
Yeah, I actually had some questions about her because is she still around? Is she kind of disappeared and off the map, I think, right?
Yeah, basically. As far as anyone knows, she resides in Sarasota, Florida, but she has definitely, you know, gone off the radar entirely. I think her website is arahias.com, and I do know they post stuff on there. I don't know when her most recent teachings were. Anything I think she's done, it's definitely just been from her own website. I think you can purchase like courses or classes in which she hosts and does, but I can't tell you for sure when her most recent one was. Maybe it was 2021 or 2019, but she definitely stays very off the radar. And I think the reason for that probably is not knowing her personal reasons, but if I had to guess, it would just be that the level of information that she's brought forward is so extensive and so profound that there's a need for it,
Yeah, the little bit
probably.
I've dabbed into, it's quite detailed. There's so many layers to it, and it's easy to well, that's it. Just so much to it. So it's like it's overwhelming when you start. Isn't her one book? It's like super thick. It's crazy.
Yeah, her main book is Voyagers 1 and Voyagers 2. Each one of those is probably like a 700-page volume. The books
Right.
cost $200 to $500 on Amazon each. She brought forth Kalantic Sciences as well, which is a science that basically descended from the Guardian races and the Guardian Alliance, which was to teach people about the sciences of Kaylanta, which is the symbol codes and the quantum mechanics and the energy mechanics and how that function and works within the body. So it's a very advanced science, spiritual science. So yeah, I basically have studied all of her stuff. Maybe not as extensive as some other people. I mean, there's even people that are like really even farther because she has advanced stuff that's even grown from her Kalantic sciences work. So, but if you want to kind of get a lens of what all of this information and community and stuff is about, another resource to look at is also Lisa Renee. Lisa Renee is another lady who channels the Guardian Alliances.
Yeah, Harlan, who's on the call here, he always brings up her. I've only heard a few of her recordings, but yeah, who's Lisa Renee?
Lisa Renee, I don't know her entire history and background and story, but I just know her work essentially. So she's at energeticsynthesis.com, and she also runs the ascensionglossary.com, which is nice because the energetic synthesis is basically all of her current channelings of the guardian systems and the guardian alliances and the guardian messages in which want to come forward. But also the ascension glossary helps people to decode the vocabulary and the terms, because essentially when you kind of come into this realm and world, it's like such an upgrade and expansion of your vocabulary. You're basically speaking almost like an entirely different language.
Right.
So you have to bring all of this information in to truly decode and understand what's being said. But it's basically speaking in light intelligence. It's a higher light frequency through linguistics. So everything you speak is light encoded. And this is how it's almost like you're inducting a celestial intelligent language in which it's the language which is necessary to bring forth the new earth consciousness. Basically, it's tethering a lot of fabrics and codes together that are creating the passageways for those realms to come through, basically.
So kind of creating a thesaurus or glossary of and like you said, a language, so we can identify and navigate these energies that have been sort of lost through our current language, in a sense.
Yeah, well, they've definitely been lost, that's for sure. It's definitely an ancient spiritual revival of kind of extracting the higher intellect and spiritual technologies from previous timelines, such as the Hyperborean and Lemurian and even the Atlantean timelines. But also there is, I think, a merging process that's happening with the future as well, as we're anchoring more celestial codes in. It's very galactic, all of this evolution. Yeah.
And you keep bringing up Lemuria, and that's been I'm producing an event in Shasta this summer for the summer solstice called the Lemurian Life Expo, and just bringing, having that name, the Lemurian Life Expo, has definitely put me down many rabbit holes of investigating and understanding the Lemurian timelines. And you just earlier in the call today, you brought up some interesting terms and ideas and concepts that are overlapping with my other research. So I'm very interested. We don't have to do it right now, but maybe later in the call to go down some of those Lemurian rabbit holes. But it does seem that that's a key component to a lot of the fall and and then the and our creation story as well, for many of the human form and the human energy centers and stuff. So I'd love to hear your take on some of that stuff, but again, I know we're going down different threads, and I'm like, this and that, so I don't want to get too spread out here for our audience. Let's go back.
Whatever wormhole you would like to go down.
Right. I know there's so many to go down, but let's go back to again your research your journey, and then, as you were saying, you've been uncovering some of the traumas that you've had, abductions and things, and that's been coming to light. Was that what were triggers for that, for the realizations, or if you don't mind going into?
Interesting. It's come through some of the coursework I've done because prior to this Gridwork facilitator course that I taught, I did another one called Travesty of Sexual Abuse and Abduction. And I taught that with Marguerite Rigoglioso, PhD. She's incredible. She's another amazing, beautiful teacher and woman sister that I know that's doing amazing work here on this planet. But we kind of got into the depth of the hybridization traumas that have been going on since the beginning. The forced breeder programs, which is something that I've deeply decoded, dissected, and studied. I have like diagrams of like all of the implants that they've done. And there's actually four different main universal implant systems that are kind of tagged in the etheric body of the collective that we have to kind of extract, release, and remove. But so I did a teaching on that. And then as I was going through that teaching, I realized a lot of my holographic inserts, which were blockages in my memory field, were kind of starting to release. And I was starting to recall things from my childhood that felt like things that had happened, I guess, against my will, so to speak, like against
Yeah.
my ability to like fully understand why those things happened, and then a feeling of things being, they just didn't feel that good afterwards, like something just didn't feel right. So, and then I kind of chalked that up to a lot of my experience during childhood where I was being contacted by light beings, which I always chalked up to them being angels. Like I always thought that they were angels. For the longest time, I've always told myself that. Going back and thinking about it now, I'm like, no, I never actually got that confirmation. They just presented themselves as light beings. So this is where it's kind of starting releasing these inserts of memory, like remembering, like, okay, the identity actually was never fully revealed. I knew that there was conscious beings that were around me. I could see them, I could feel them. I remember being in fear a lot as a child. Like I was always scared. And and I think this is a very reoccurring thing for people who are HSPs, highly sensitive people, empaths and starseeds, is we are fearful as a child because we're very conscious of the living energies that are around us. We don't know if we should or shouldn't communicate with them. So they, create a lot of fear within us. So for about 4 years of my childhood, I had relentless nightmares every single night, just never ending, it was just intense. So I think a lot of this came in from these contact and abduction like experiences that were occurring around the age of 5, 6, 7. This was kind of when the memories started to come forward. I could tell you what they are. Some of them are definitely a little intense with the experimentation and some of the things they had did to my body. But they just, yeah. So I did actually a live on this. I did talk about this on my channel.
Okay.
So if you go to my most recent live that I did, I explained all of this
And this is
because I was,
particularly with the zetas in the more of
this
the,
came up when I was connecting with the Zeta's energy.
right.
So yeah, that's what is interesting about it.
Mhm.
Um,
I think a lot of people have had those types of experiences, the poking and the prodding and the beyond, going beyond the free will, and creating a lot of that stuff. So, how do for people who may have those memories, how do you deal with that?
well, I'm still dealing with it.
Okay.
I
Right.
think I think in some sense or in some way or another, they're experiences that are meant to activate our DNA. Like they are meant to be a part of our biological ascension process. So they are meant to come in and awaken and turn strands of the DNA on. And that does happen. Um, I think for me, my soul evolution, though, has come through really connecting with guardian races. So I've become more aware of the intruder races and what they're here to do, and, why they do the things that they do and how they view humanity. And, it really comes down through the medical system. Um, this is I mean, if I think if people knew how extensive the ET negative intruder race lines are here and what they're doing, like the experimentation, the sampling of our genetic material, the cataloging of our genetic material, the data and recording of the genetic material. I mean, we're basically like a petri dish to them.
Sure.
I mean, ultimately, like, this is how they view humanity. They don't see us to have like feelings and to have, like we matter. Like, we are like a resource here in which they can utilize to bring their race line in, to evolve and change the race lines, modify it. DNA modification and manipulation. This is what the entire like Sumerian story was about. Um,
You said
and so
Sumerian story or
yeah,
Syrian?
Sumerian.
Sumerian. Okay.
Yeah. The Sumerian creation story.
That's
The
the
Sumerian.
Anunnaki and that kind of
Mhm.
that storyline.
Yeah, that storyline. They
And
came
that
in.
predated Lemuria, or did that was that post Lemuria in a sense? Do you think in a
I
linear time sense?
feel that they are definitely interlapping from Lemurian to Atlantean timelines. I
Mhm.
think there's multiple series of events and multiple cataclysms in which occurred, um, from Lemuria, shifting into the Atlantean time. And then also, I think the bulk of the corruption began around the second cataclysm in Atlantis. This was kind of like the major fall that occurred.
Right. That was the
And
global
that,
reset.
mhm, yeah.
And and
Um,
and to go back, what we're playing out today is sort of echoes of the same energy in a sense. Unhealed traumas, these intrusion energies that are um, making themselves more prevalent or more aware to humanity through through the COVID program and the other things that are coming through. Here's my thumbs up. Um, and so it seems like it's the veil is thinning as far as them hiding in the shadows. That was a big part, I think, of the majority of more recent timelines, is they've been doing their sort of shadow work, dark stuff behind the veil. And now that the veil is getting thinner, it seems that we're having these conversations. We're able to identify the players. We understand that we're having a better understanding of the Babylonian magical reverse what do you call it, the reverse interlay line
yeah, the reversal energy in
energies.
Babylon. Yeah,
Yeah.
the fall of the Tower of Babel was one of the major events that occurred, in which kind of pulled humanity even deeper into that reversal energy, which reversal means, and I didn't really explain this that well. It means
Yeah.
anti-life.
Okay.
It means like anti-life architecture. So it's what propagates death culturalism. It's um, what brings forth illness, sickness,
Right.
disease, aging. Um, so
And
it's,
I'm curious, why would beings want to, what's their motivation for exploring those things? Is it about control ultimately at the end of the day?
yeah, I want to say it's about control. I mean,
Okay.
you have to think about some of these race lines. I mean, if we're talking about the Zetas and the Tyrannosaurs and the Zionites, like, we're going like to pre-Earth timelines. This supersedes Hyperborea and Lemuria.
Mhm.
So this is 560 million years on this Earth prior to where we are now. So this is how long alien hybridizing and modification of the original angelic human genome has been going on. So this is like very ancient. So these races that are here now, the same ones we're talking about that are going back 560 million years, they know the ins and outs of this planet. They know the ins and outs of the mechanics. They know what resources we have here. So they have a huge advantage over us as human beings that, we can't even remember what we did in our past life. We can't
Right.
remember what we did last week.
Right, right,
How
right.
are we supposed to overcome the weaponry in which they've installed in this planet? So they have very advanced, they're called beast machines,
Beast machines. Okay.
beast machines. One of them in which we spoke about was the Saturn cube matrix.
Oh
I
yeah.
actually have a picture of it. I could show it
Okay.
to you.
Yeah, please.
Um, hmm,
Do I need to give you permissions here? Let me see.
maybe, but I have to go find it on my blog really quick.
Okay, okay. Let me also figure out how to do that with the sharing.
Okay.
Okay, I think you might be able to share. Let me know.
Okay. So let me just go down to the picture because I think I have the picture. Maybe I don't have the picture. I have a video. So this is
Oh,
considered the Black Tesseract cube.
oh yeah, I think we last time we talked a little bit
Did we
about this,
talk about this one? Okay.
but I think it's the animation is way more advanced than last time. So
Oh,
I don't think
awesome.
I don't
We've
think you had an
upgraded.
animation. Yeah.
Uh, this is just one way. This is just one thing that I've channeled to try to define, I guess, the negative aspect and the intruder aspect to what's happening on the inner part of the earth, like how this is kind of superseding into the race morphogenetic field of the planet. It's superseding into the Earth's spiritual body and Merkaba body, and kind of affecting the flow of that Merkaba, basically, which is the life force essence of the planet itself, the spiritual immune system. It's hijacking it, kind of interlaying it, overlaying it, and running what is called a spike matrix from the internal aspect of the planet. Those spikes are going into particular sites, such as the Vatican, such as Washington, D.C., such as the Temple Mount, right? And we think about the three Abrahamic religions and all of the crazy stuff that's happened at the Temple Mount, even now.
That's where the black cube is now, that the big one where everybody goes and walks around.
The Kaaba,
The
yeah,
Kaaba, yeah.
in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop my screen share. But
Okay.
that's just an example of one of the machines. This is just the energetic fuel to the machines, the trons that are actually operating on the Earth. One of the major trons, which is a Decepticon, is particle accelerators.
And
I
when we're
think we
talking
talked about
trons,
CERN.
I know it sounds kind of transformy, but Decepticons for sure. But the tron, I think Edgar Casey talks about the automatrons. Is that the same type of thing? Same type of energy we're talking about here?
It may be. I
Okay.
haven't looked at Edgar Casey's viewpoint of all of it, but it probably very well does link into this. Trons are just basically the mechanical parts in which work to weaken the biofield of the planet, and keep humans within frequency fences, essentially. So these, well, one of the ways that they've done it is, I think one of the reasons why the fall of Atlantis originally occurred is that they found a way to take down the mother grid. The mother grid is actually a living fabric, right? This is what actually hosts all living life on the planet. Like, it comes from the mother mitochondrial cells, and it's a fabric network in which weaves everything together. I think that is powered and generated through the crystal vortexes in the planet and the crystal body. They found a way to take that and shut that down, or even turn that off. So if they could even do that forever, however amount of time, obviously these cataclysmic timelines, however long they lasted in Atlantis, that's significantly going to make the consciousness on the planet fall if they can take that structure down. So they created their Neburian crystal bunkers and basically set these up in these major crystal cavern locations. And they're like control stations that basically control the crystal consciousness in the planet, and it's how they can manipulate and utilize that crystal technology as a free energy source and a resource that's very, very valuable, even probably more so valuable than their gold, that runs the negative monetary system. But basically, they use those crystals and to develop AI. And there's negative AI and positive AI, like it's working in both ways for humanity. But the intruder races have utilized it to create overlay structures that basically mind control humanity, like a dog bark collar, like keeping them inside of that frame of mental perception. And there's multiple of these control structures that they created during the Atlantean time. This is a part of Ashiana's teaching. She calls it the Atlantean Pylon Implant Network. And she talks about these multiple overlays and these control fences, these frequency fences in which humanity is kind of corralled and kept in. And this is a very diabolical thing. Not only is it happening within the land, but we did talk about it the other day being a digestible frequency fence and what we're allowed to eat. All of this is monitored and ultimately controlled to cap our consciousness according to where once they made everything fall to where they want things to be. So that's why I'm so dedicated to the grid work, is because I feel like I'm working spiritually on the exact weaponry in which is hijacking the fall of humanity and limiting our consciousness from being able to rise again. Not only is it the inner Earth Saturn cube matrix, beast machines and trons, particle accelerators, they have the underground crystal bunkers and bases. This is technically what those deep underground military bases are serving. Like there's a lot of dark military that goes into all of this. There is underground tunnel systems in which they can operate a lot of nuclear weaponry and nuclear devastation. And that in itself is such a big thing that really keeps that consciousness suppressed as well. There's so much. I mean, you have HAARP, sky weapons, sky haters, sky weather modification technology.
CERN.
Yeah, CERN, all of the like Area 49, Area 51, Area 52. There's planetary branding that they have going on there. And I mean, it's crazy. The dark lead.
They have a lot. They have, they are, this is why I always, so just to sort of flip it on the other side is why humanity is going to totally win this is because all of these mechanisms and things that they have to put into place to keep these agendas going. Just imagine once any couple, just one or two or a couple of those things are gone, boom, humanity, we're already doing it. We're already proving that humanity is winning just by being ourselves. There's not much we have to do. So but and the Earth is already at this, to try to force Earth to not evolve is what these beings and these energies and these programs and these things are doing, and they're losing. With all of these efforts, they are still losing. So I think people, when they first hear this type of information, it can easily be a bit overwhelming, and maybe I just wanted to sort of put some disclaimers in here that people may, oh my God, there's all this stuff, because people aren't aware of all the different programs and things. And when they start hearing about it, they immediately, they get triggered and they go into fear. But I just wanted to kind of throw and see your perspective on all that. The work you're doing is much needed, and many people are doing this work. But how do you see this sort of playing out and what's happening now on the positive side? So now that we've identified, so, and I know there's way more other negative things, and I do that. I have a thing on Fridays I call Wayne's Lowdown, and I explore some of these more negative storylines and aspects and things to look out for, and stay away from this or shift our energy over here. But from your perspective, what are you the positive side of the grid work and sort of identifying, because a lot of times to fix a problem you have to admit you have a problem, or admit or see that there's an issue there so you can address it. So and I know that's what we're doing here.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the reasons why Gridwork is coming up the way it is, and we're getting this information and getting the downloads about, how we go about doing this is because I think we're here to assist and to aid the planet within her defense systems and defense strategies. Essentially, that's kind of what guardianship and guardian contracts are about. It's about stepping up into parental roles on the planet. Um, some of the stuff I've been starting to get psychically in terms of my downloads. I might have talked to you about some of this stuff last time. Do you want me to show you some more pictures of some things?
Sure.
Let me is I've been getting the original Earth structures basically and what they look like naturally and
Oh,
organically.
cool.
Have I showed you this one before?
Maybe, but it's always good for a review.
Okay,
Again, this feels a little more updated. I think you've got cooler
there's more
graphics
to
now.
it.
Yeah.
This was one that I kind of downloaded. This was the Tiamat Templeting. So this kind of came in because I see things psychically. I consider myself to be a planetary global grid reader. So I read all of the holographic information and data collect basically, and just like whatever visions I get, then I try to put it into a graphic so that way I can decode it more and go into it more and like what are the mechanics of it all. So this is kind of a download I got that this was just the fifth dimensional template blueprint of the planet. This houses the inner core halls of Amenti, the Hall of Records, and the reflection of the entire universe. So it's basically the super consciousness field of the planet. This connects into the mother grid, and this is what sustains the living current essence of the mother fabric. At the core of that, there's a hexagonal honeycomb shape matrix, which is significant of the 5D inner body Earth. And then from that, it's an emanating flower of life. So this is kind of a cosmic heart pulse from the point of all union that creates life on the Earth. So I think we're getting downloaded with these to sustain these fabrics and these living currents within our own bodies. So as we do the grid work, we hold the frequency of this to sustain us through these defensive strategies in which I'm going to tell you about. Another one is the next thing that I started to get was the light fields of the Lemurian timelines. This would be that one. So this is the Lemurian light grid fabric one. This was a download that I got. So essentially, these are the consciousness fields to the Lemurian timeline. These are like the light tethering fields that hold the timeline together in its integral fields. The inner X points, the pink X's, these are significant to inner Earth vortices, which is information that we need to get as we evolve our 12th dimensional souls to access the inner Earth for cleansing and clearing. Within that geometry, there's a diamond refined crystal body template. There's hourglass feminine stargate geometrics that run with it. And most of the Lemurian timeline runs within the angular ley line systems in the planets because it goes planetary pole shift. That's where Lemuria existed. So consciously and energetically and spiritually, you have to actually access the light fields prior to that pole shift tilt to kind of get this. And what happens is these light matrices download into your own gridding field in your body, and you get those codes that activate so that way you can deeper access the timelines. So you can do a lot of archaic revival of sciences and information, if you kind of like tune in and embody this templating. Now, is this entirely what it is? I mean, this was what it is for me as I'm psychically tuning. It might be different for other people according to their DNA, and the race genetics that they hold within themselves, like how they're going to interpret and understand and see and feel and intuit this. Some of the other ones.
Quickly, just on that last map, I noticed one of the cross points did seem like Mount Shasta area was there, one of the intersecting points. I'm wondering, Japan seemed to be a little covered there. I was trying to look at Japan to see if there was any intersection points over there.
Yeah, it does seem
hard
to
to
be
see a
running
little
very
bit.
close to Mount Shasta, doesn't it, up here? wonder if this is Shasta up here, or is it down here more?
It's kind of a little south of the Oregon border, so it's up there
Okay.
near California, Oregon border.
Um, well, this light fabric would definitely be running through Shasta. I mean, it's an
Mhm.
inner earth portal and gate structure
Right.
system. Basically, that's going to take you into the Agartha realms, into the Seraphim underground light cities, into the diamond architecture and the internal caverns of the planet. So yeah, most definitely.
And
When I designed this, it was more about designing the geometrics of it. The
right.
points necessarily in this picture, I feel like this would have to be decoded to become more exact. There would definitely need to be much more detailed graphic design to actually make this in accordance to that, the
That
actual
exact spot.
intersection points. Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. And when you said seraphim, can because that has different meanings based on your religious backgrounds. Could you explain the meaning for the inner earth and the correlation for the inner earth beings in the Agartha network?
Well, there's many beings that I think are functioning in the inner earth realms. The seraphim would definitely be, they're kind of a mix between the serpent and dragon lines. And they're kind of more of like a fire elemental angelic soul body. They are some of the beings that are closest to source, basically. They're closest to God. They are considered the burning ones. And they are some of the original angelic soul seeding lineages that came in to seed humanity. They definitely seeded into and merged with many different race lines. They did merge into the Lemurian soul body as well. I think they came in at the time of the Pleiadians even, or maybe even prior to the Pleiadians. I honestly think that the angelic race lines were here prior to any ET involvement.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they go back prior.
And
Um,
and that's
or
that
we really hope they did.
right.
Yeah.
And that's related to you said serpent energy. So like the idea of ancient dragon wisdom and then there's I know Z's been talking about working with the dragon ley lines of late. Are these more or awakening the dragon ley lines? Are these more are that connected to that in a sense, the wisdom keepers and
Yes, they would definitely be functioning within the telluric. The telluric currents are the dragon ley lines. They do exist in the inner earth passageways. And that's kind of where they like to exist. And if you are to work with them energetically for clearing, that's kind of like their domain. Yeah, it's their domain.
and how is that working with like we have the darker networks like you were just talking about the cube energy and it has tunnels or it has
I was going to show you this one too.
oh cool as the connections to these other darker vortices or energy vortices. How does the dragon energy how is that
Oh,
working around that?
I'll come back to this picture. We'll talk about
Oh,
that for a second.
okay.
Um, Basically, they are struggling here too.
Okay.
Um, they were a lot of the dragon. I mean, because you think about Tiamat, Tiamat kind of houses the consciousness of that original embodied dragon template. So it goes back to planetary warfare. It goes back to the implosions of Nibiru, Nemesis, Marduk, and Maldek. And so I think one of the reasons in which separation and fragmentation occurred was because our consciousness and our identity is still functioning from planetary trauma. So we can talk about all of our human traumas that we got in trigger events, but
Right. And Marduk, I think is that the planet that blew up out within our solar system. And then remind me about Tiamat. Where does Tiamat fit into that?
so Tiamat was the like Earth's spirit body consciousness prior to any planetary impact. It's kind of like her name basically.
Oh, I
Like
see.
yeah,
Before any fall. energy.
Right,
Okay.
right. It's kind of like the perfection of the dragon's consciousness prior to like it was separated or destroyed or dismembered. That's basically what happened to the dragon's energy, is it was dismembered into parts all over the planet. So she's still broken up and fragmented, not only within our own inner structures, but also within the asteroid belt, right?
Okay, I see.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the asteroid belt, is the remnants of Marduk, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So Tiamat and Marduk are now like one and the same because
Mhm.
they're all mixed and scrambled up together. And this is what I think propagates a lot of the warfare between light and dark,
I see.
the duality, the separation between guardians and invaders, and why we're like in opposing forces and resistant forces with one another. It's really just about the intention in which those consciousnesses are serving, because it is within our planetary matrix, it's within the planetary hologram, and it's within the dimensions of the planetary body that it sustains a planetary field of existing consciousness. So this is another one of the reasons in which it's why such a labyrinth of trying to decode, to restore, rehabilitate, and correct, is because for one, there's groups of us that are just trying to collect the dragon parts and like get her all back together. See, the dragon parts are very powerful, and the invader forces know this. This is what the Vatican is all about. Vatican, Vatica. Vatica is the name of the dragon. They're sitting on a very high vortex and nodal point there, that they're siphoning basically the dragon's heart. Underneath the Vatican, I do think that there's it's a direct gateway and access to the heart chakra core of the dragon itself. You know, everything really over in that area, Northern Europe. That's why we have the Albion spine, the Albion ley lines. I mean, this is the structure of the dragon body. I have a picture of the dragon template,
Okay.
actually.
I was just going to say also the Vatican has that in their hall there, that they have the snake, the viper sort of uh, symbolism. And I'm wondering, is that, a lot of people see that as a negative thing. I'm wondering if that is something more, they're just harnessing that energy. You know what I'm talking about? I can probably.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, they're hijacking and harnessing it. Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all about what the slaying of the Hydra's head was all about. Demonizing the serpent in the Bible, cutting off of Medusa's head, in which they hold as a relic up underneath the Vatican,
Right, right.
as kind of like a power source and a reminder of what they are siphoning and hijacking, and also suppressing of the feminine energy and consciousness. Um, this this is just like my little design. This is the best I can do right now. I don't think it's too bad, but it kind of hits some of the significant points of the dragon's energy.
Mhm.
I can see, let me read this. Spirals in from Andromeda, the metagalactic core, and Polaris, white dragon, king and queen lineages, initiating activation from Newgrange and the forces of the Triskelion. The three spirals of creation, also the 369 encoding, holds the threefold founder flame of creation with the core of the defender grid. Harnesses the cosmic dragon womb and connects in through the spine of Albion and moves from north to south in the 0-point field and east to west through the 22nd degree horizontal ley line and also the 44th. So running right through the 33rd, which is the hypertension zone on the planet. The main artery heart pulse sits underneath the Vatican, where they have worked hard to hide and reverse her defender grid's energy. Activated points in the defender grid are Wales in the United Kingdom, China, and also Indonesia as well. You can see down here in the red, this is kind of like the dragon's hand or the dragon's claw. And connects to inner earth crystal caves, all sacred pools of water globally, and is an important part of activating the entire defender system. This grid, when you tune into it, activates life, accomplishment, realizations, awakenings, and directs and connects self-discipline to focus and aligned action. So this is a generating grid, and I've been calling it a defender grid because these are forces that spiritually do defend and protect the planet against diabolical and evil energy. So these things do activate when negative things happen, war timelines start to come up.
Mhm.
When you know, crazy things, you know, Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and just all the stuff that's
Right.
going over there. Like this energy is active over there right now. This is what's over there defending the innocent.
Yeah.
Things like this. So it runs now these defender systems, such as there's other ones, there's not just the dragon's energy, there's multiple like energies that, because they're fragmented too, so they're doing the best they can, but they also need healing, which is crazy, an aspect of it to think about that, right? Like we also have to heal this dragon energy to help restore the planetary spiritual immune system. But this is operating on a fabric, a light matrixy, kind of like that Lemurian light grid one that I just showed you. But you can see how in the background, these little diamond, you know, fabric, that's kind of, it was one way for me to kind of show how it's sustained through the planet through a light fabric. And it is operating from the LPIN, which is a Lemurian pilot implant network, which is holding the codes pre-fall. Right? So we can tap into the pre-fall timelines and light fabrics to essentially try to help extract and remind the consciousness on the earth what it once was, to help kind of bring forth the changes and the revolutionary energy, the rehabilitation energy, and which is going to get us to our new earth timelines, essentially. That's kind of making sense. Now, do you want to see
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
defender ones that we have?
Sure.
Okay. See, I have a list of them here. Pictures somewhere. Okay, this was the megalithic defender grid. Now this is like really crazy, but this is all megalithic sites on the planet that essentially will activate to run a defender system. Now I think the bulk of them are really here in Europe, Northern Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe. This is kind of, now they're all over the world, but they're most concentrated here. And so I think a lot of this spiritual defense energy came through like the Celtics and the Druids. I think this is where the most ancient remnants of it has been brought to the planet, into the consciousness of the planet, to be reactivated and ran through the planet.
And wasn't recently there was some attacks on Easter Island or fires or something? Like is Easter Island is you can't even travel there anymore. What's going on there?
Exactly. I actually have an Easter Island. Well, the thing is the Easter Islands are the #1 defense spiritual system that we have on the earth. So it makes sense that they would be attacked. Let me see
Right.
if I can find the picture to that. I'll tell you about that defense system. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going so fast. I just
All good.
have to find it because this is on my website too, indigoangel222.com. I labeled it as a grid worker glossary, and you can find it under my coursework tab. And it's all like free access to anyone who wants to look at it.
And the
Oh my gosh,
coursework
I don't even
tab
know
is
where I
this
put it.
Gridwork Facilitator course or which
Here it
would
is. Yeah, Gridwork Facilitator course.
okay.
This tab here. So if you go to my coursework tab, I have all my courses that I've done, except for my second one, just because I didn't do a landing page on it, just because this course kind of happened. I was doing a course before that, so I didn't have time to do a landing page, but if you go to learn.indigoangel222.com, you'll basically find my landing page for Facilitator 2.0.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so yeah, you're absolutely right. This is our #1 defense system that we have. The Moai heads are a part of that. And there's a lot of, it seems like stones are really connected to our spiritual defense systems. Those that have the DNA codes, okay, and the planetary knowledge of sound healing, because they respond to sound healing. There's certain sound healings that will actually make these Moai heads move on the island and relocate in formation that puts them in a defender formation. You can activate it through the sound healing, and it's going to open up the inner earth gate systems in the planet. And then you can go in and kind of like do a spiritual cleansing or a spiritual clearing within the planet to try to alleviate the dark forces that have basically taken over the inner core flower of life structures. So this is very powerful because it said that the Rapa Nui, this is where the four angels of the four directions were essentially born on the planet, like where they came in and descended. They descended into this location. So it's the highest angelic frequency is here that could be accessed on the planet, that runs through the rainbow codes, and the four pillars of man. Basically, it's the fabric of it is kind of held here. This also connects into the Hawaiian Islands. So the Hawaiian Islands are very much a part of this. If you had to think of it in terms of the biomechanics, the Easter Islands is kind of sustaining the planetary universal tree of life, like the templating, and the islands of Hawaii are like the Earth's chakra system, basically, because each one of those Hawaiian islands is like a chakra of its own. And all of them are, you're able to access the inner Earth gate systems, basically. So yeah, this is a very powerful one too. This one kind of activates in the awakening of a diabolical doomsday. So kind of like you've seen the movie The Fifth Element, where it's like she's activated right before the planet's about to explode. If this is similarly energetically like the prophecy goes, this is kind of what happened. It's like this is what this island is held for.
And it looks like I'm just seeing the news articles there. It was arson, for the fires that was set off, and this was about a year ago.
Yeah,
So,
I remember that. And I'm trying to get down to Easter Islands in September, so I'm hoping, you said they're closed.
maybe it's opened back up, but they've had it so people can't go there for a while now. I think since the fires.
Okay. Man. Yeah,
Well,
that's probably there's hope. They're trying to hold, there's a reason for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have the talk about the energy weapons on Maui there, and the significant. I'm sure that's related.
Yes.
And I want to go back to your work with at the Vatican and working with the Medusa energy. And can you talk us about your experience there and what you were able to uncover and hopefully unlock?
One of the most intense places spiritually I've ever been. Just put it that way. The evil there is real. I think I was attacked almost every single night in my dream space with what are the attacks that you get? Like a night terror.
Where you freeze up, right? It's
Yeah, where you can't like scream and you can't move, and every single night that I was there,
yeah.
demons were coming into my lucid state. They were very visible in my dreams, doing just all kinds of insidious things to me. I would have dreams that their hands, like their
Sleep
decrepit
paralysis.
demonic, yeah, sleep paralysis, that was happening for the entire time, every single night for 2 weeks that I was there. Their hand was coming out of like my computer screen and like hooking my jaw and like pulling me into them. They would hold me in suspension off of the floor. So they would just take my body and like put me in a corner up off the floor. So I can't scream and I can't like even touch the floor. And they would make me watch things that they would go and do to my family members. Yeah, the
Wow.
demons would. Yeah.
So,
And it was mostly
how do
my
you,
children. It's mostly my children.
oh my God, how do you
Yeah.
counteract that? What do you do in those situations?
At first it stuns you, and how they attack you is it slowly starts to like weaken you over time. Like, because it's every night you're getting the attack, the attack, the attack. So it's like it starts to just like takes your vibration down, makes you weaker and more susceptible to the other forms of attacks that they have. I do think that I was hit with some form of a bioweapon there. Because the grid worker day that we went, like the day that we were supposed to actually do the boots on the ground grid work, I actually was approached by the Italian Policia at the Vatican, was told that I had to leave. So I couldn't even get on location to do any of the extraction work in some of the areas that we needed to go. We had to kind of do it around the outer perimeters because it was like the dark forces immediately like spotted us
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
once it's kind of like I've talked about this analogy of the with the Eye of Sauron in Lord of the Rings. Like when you put the ring on, you go invisible, but the eye can see you. And I
yeah.
think that's when we start doing at the extent of the work that you're doing, you can definitely you get seen by the darker forces.
Having that said, I wasn't exactly the most discreet. I did wear some angel wings on my back.
Right.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh. Yeah. I had like this, like I didn't care attitude in a way where I was just like, I don't like, I felt like I don't care. Like, I don't care what they do to me. Like, I know what I believe and I know what I stand for and I know like what this place is about. And so, I just had this like, this fighter spirit, this warrior spirit going into it. But they did, work to try to dismantle and tear me apart. A lot really came out of that. I definitely deeply had to spiritually, energetically, and emotionally recover for the entire following year after that trip.
Wow.
Mhm, yes. I got COVID,
Hmm.
and it was a very strange way that COVID came about while I was there. It felt like I had it for so long, and just, I mean, I had it going home, believe it or not.
Hmm.
I had to actually go, I had to get on a plane and go home. That's
Mm.
crazy. I had to get out of there. I had to get out of there.
Wow.
Um, but
Well, going back to what you were just saying, because I've
yeah,
had a couple of these sleep paralysis, we could call them attacks or whatever, where in dream time, some darker things come through. And what's always worked for me is, yeah, just standing, holding that field of like, I don't care how crazy this, whatever shows up in your dream time or whatever the energies are doing, just standing your ground in a sense, and telling them to, you're not allowed in, get out of here, this is I know who I am. That seems to always have worked for me, and in a sense repelling those energies or not letting those energies, they can do all the crazy stuff that happens. But does that work for you as well, just sort of holding your ground?
well, there's that. You have to, yeah, you really have to dissolve all of the fear within
Mm-hmm.
you. Know that your higher self is ultimately in control. They can only like torture you or hijack you for a certain amount of time. Like it's not like it's not really what the Vatican makes it seem. Like when you think about these like exorcisms and stuff, like I honestly feel like that's some form of spiritual deception to make people scared to,
Yeah.
entangle with the spiritual forces. But I've never personally, I have seen some haunting and possession actually happen. Um, the thing about it and why it can accelerate and why it's so intense is because these negative spirits, these negative energies, they're functioning in a reversal stargate. So what's happening is you might be very, like, let's say my particles, my field spin is going in the direction of life. Like I am at my highest timeline, my highest spiritual immune system. It's very vibrant and very radiant. I go into that reversal stargate. Okay. If that's not sustaining a strength, what happens is I go into that gate and then it starts to reverse its spin. It starts to match the gate system because the planetary energy is like more powerful than ours. So then all of that dark energy, it amplifies. And what happens is it starts to amplify into your own inner internal darkness. And so everything that is at the deepest levels of your own childhood fear, basically, from the root of that, starts to manifest itself and play through all of the layers of your consciousness and awareness. And it increpidously interpenetrates you into every dynamic of your life, basically your relationships. It will try to break up and dismantle everything that you have going on. So as much as and as scary as it seems to approach a reversal stargate and kind of go in there and try to be a warrior of that energy, ultimately, it can't totally take you over. But what they do is they reveal to you your deepest level of your own shadow. So I say reversal energy work is the most life-changing work that you can ultimately do, because it will force those big changes in your life that you have to make to overcome all of that shadow and darkness. And then like you're kind of kicking yourself in the butt because you signed up for it. But
Right.
um, I think they work within the bigger aspects of your life cycles, 5 to 10 year life cycles, and those big changes that have to really be made to get to where you want to go and be. It's all working again back into the point of the law of one and all unity and harmony, but we're just going in like different directions to do it essentially. And all consciousness, even lower entity forms, are consciousness that's trying to survive here. Ultimately, it's about survival and the tactics in which those consciousness, those spirits, those entities, those negative ETs are doing and using, and the intention in which they serve to get to what they need to go. Ultimately, they're all trying to evolve.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the lower ones are just doing it within the battlefield aspect of the planet, right?
Right.
Like where the warfare plays out.
Yeah, I was going to say, our biggest teachers are those darker forces. They bring those darker aspects of us. They reflect that back, so we can sort of identify the areas in our life that need the work, that need attention and need healing. So for sure, they do have their role. They do serve their role in awakening
Yeah.
and helping us remember who we are. But I wanted to go ahead and open it up to questions for the audience here. I'm seeing some flow through. So let's see. Karen is saying, "What's their goal with sleep paralysis? I've experienced it once and woke up in the middle of it while it was happening." Do you know what the
Yeah.
goal is there?
I honestly feel like they're feeding. I feel like there's some form of like feeding, like
Right, right.
you're being like fed on, like they're feeding your they're either they're hijacking you for some reason. Yeah,
Well, like you
there's
were
some
saying,
sort of
it's kind of
consumption.
beating you down, projecting these images or fear scenarios and we have that with our narratives in the media. We have that with everything that's happening wartime especially, and it does seem I've always saw that. I always saw what's happening with the Palestine genocide is in a sense because war creates it's a perpetual motion kind of energy, and then there is a that feeding energy of the sacrifice aspects of giving uh creating that fear
Yeah,
in the actual being or beings that are being sacrificed in a sense, and then the darker forces do feed on that.
yeah, yeah. I think me
So
and you are very in alignment with what's going on over there with I call it the Gaza Giza Strip. The thing
yeah,
about that
yeah,
is they're really located between two of the most like powerful and tumultuous stargates on the planet. It's like right between the Temple Mount and Giza. Like if you even draw a ley line from the Temple Mount to Giza, it goes right through the heart of Gaza. So
yeah,
they're in like the center of a lot of, I think, agendas between multiple intruder negative alien factions that operate and function between those Stargate systems. And so they're used as pawns, also satanic ritual abuse and offerings to their gods. And it's just there's so many things that are going on there with that. They're also held
yeah.
in a frequency fence as well. The whole like border of it is entirely a frequency fence.
But
So
the on the positive side, if people are they're going back to 9/11 2001, we had the narratives and the news media doing their manipulation and sort of egging on wars and things, and majority of Americans fell for it. I'm seeing this time around, um, there is a bit of a resistance, a bit of an awakening where people are like, this is, especially thanks to social media and
Yeah.
TikTok and others, X and whatnot, that are sort of offering a different perspective than the mainstream media. And people are like, hey, no, this is not cool. We need to, let's not do this. So
Yeah.
so it seems like there is a bit of a more of an awakening this round, so to say. There's major protest in Israel against the Israeli government happening even yesterday. Before going to bed, I saw
Wow, that's really good.
I was
Okay.
seeing on Twitter thousands assembling, and this has been ongoing, but it seems to be getting bigger and bigger. The movement to put a stop to the genocide. There's obviously the mainstream media is not going to cover any of that stuff, but it is being covered, and people are coming to the awareness.
That's so important. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. Yeah, I did a whole deep dive on that one on my channel recently. And we did also a group session on that one where we went and just like help restore, send in prayers, also release prayers, send aid to the children, like in an energetic spiritual form, calling a lot of angelic forces in, just to kind of, help how we can from across the world. Like, how else can we do that other than create sacred ceremony for them? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And again, this is all coming to the surface now. These stargates and portals we heard inklings of this during after the 9/11 and the first the first and the second Iraq war. These were themes going in our spiritual communities to a certain extent about the stargates that were being harnessed for the energy and why these wars were happening. It seems to be more prominent now. The people, at least in these conversations in the spiritual communities, people are like, "There's stargates there. This is what the real battle is over." Um,
Yeah. We're
could
all
you?
awakening to this. We're
Yeah,
all
yeah.
awakening to this information. It needs to happen. It's going to happen. It's a part of the revolution. I
Mm-hmm.
think again, yeah, the grid worker technology, it's the future spiritual technology that is getting us to, the higher timelines and the new earth prophecy. I think we all have a different role within the grid worker reality. Some of us are, conduits and transmitters between these Stargate systems. Some of us take on sacred assignment missions in which we are, granted a download. We are granted a vision about locations where things are stuck, where things have to be moved, where, so we go and we do that sacred work on behalf of the divine and source, the creator, the guardians, and some of us are on rescue and recovery missions. Like, we're meant to go into the Vatican and extract the evil out. Like, we may just be taking a layer off of that, but as more of us awaken to our spiritual God sovereign freedom to do this work, we can see more positive changes. And I think it's going to take all of us waking up to it to like work together and remember that we're all like serving our future and the greater good of humanity. So yeah.
And this is happening with the awareness of the life forces within everything, right, from animals to trees to nature, and strengthening those connections, strengthening those intuitive hits and downloads, and trusting that if you're getting information or downloads to do a certain thing, gridding or connect in a certain way to certain parts of the world, or even animals and plants and trees and just trusting those connections and strengthening those, right? And that's going to guide us to the work that we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. As a grid worker, we look at all of our organic resources that are available to us, the mineral kingdom, the insect kingdom, the tree kingdom, like you just said, the passageways of water, mountaintops, high nodal peak points, where are our crystal caverns located? I mean, some of them are obvious to us, like Chihuahua, Mexico, and places like this that we can tap into the crystal caverns, pull this energy in. Like, it's like It's like, yeah, it feels like you're taking in like a sick patient and taking away all the bad things that are making them sick, and then giving them all of the organic things that are going to make them better. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's
It's
like,
a
it's this,
herbal or a holistic sort of healing, as opposed to, take this pill and you'll be better.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's looking at all the aspects, and the cause and the root cause of the issue, more of a sort of a
Yes.
Chinese medicine approach than a Western. Let's cut it out and sew it up and you'll be fine afterwards, which works sometimes, but instead of cutting it out, the broken part, let's heal it.
Well, we can actually do psychic surgery.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Depending
Absolutely.
on your level of mastery within the grid work. Some of us, those of us that are more in like the indigo type 3 roles, and like we're meant to be like the rescue and recovery teams, we will have more of like a natural ability to do things like psychic surgery, which is really just like being able to see really deeply into the shadow and the duality and the polarity and the darkness, and have the right codes and the right technology essentially within you to be able to extract it, collapse it, dissolve it, recalibrate it, move it, maybe drop it off into a 12D portal, return it back to source, whatever it is, you're guided to do to kind of go about that. But I like to call it psychic surgery because I think we also have spiritual tools. I think we're granted certain things like, and I'll say this, but it's not as bad as it sounds, even weapon systems, like on some degree, because like we have sacred tools like the sword of truth. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? We have, I call it the scythe of harvest. We have shields. We actually have like inner shields, inner resilient shields that we can place and utilize and stuff. So we're being equipped. Yeah, we are spiritually being entirely equipped with everything we need to create our inner strength body, our inner resilience body, to be able to, withstand everything that's being thrown at us.
Right. And I think that's so many people I think when again, we were talking earlier about all the different um, modalities and different things that these dark forces are trying to impede on humanity in order to continue these enslavement games. So this reminder that we do have the technology, we do have the ability to call upon individually and collectively the things needed to counteract these things. So it's not like we're, weaponless in a sense, or toolless, or we don't have what's needed to do that. And I think when so many people first hear about all this stuff, they just feel overwhelmed by the amount of information and
Yeah.
and that they again get sort of that sleep paralysis moment, like what do I do? And then I think for everything that the dark forces have, we have that and more access
Mhm.
to counteract anything there. I see Mark has his hand up, but right quick, Alex is asking, how do you find out your role?
Well, I think you awaken to remember it. Just like I awoke to remember some of my abduction stories where it's like, okay, the awakening and the recollection starts coming up, maybe you've been looking at your life, like what have you been doing all your life? Have you always been called to traveling? Do you now have a career where you travel a lot, or you've moved a lot your entire life? Have you always been connected to nature and sacred sites and all of this? Like looking at kind of what you've been doing, even if it's not like in the technical sense and all these terms in which I use, but you can look at the basics of what you've already been doing and go, oh yeah, okay, I think I have been grid working this entire time. I've been doing this all along, and oh my gosh, so that's an awakening. You awaken, you remember, it installs, it activates, it comes more alive. You dig deeper, another awakening comes in, and then you start realizing, okay, what's my place in this? And so you have to be a searcher, you have to be a seeker, you have to be following those activations, not doubting them, like trusting that intuition. And are you called to go to a sacred site? Like, let's say you're just kind of peeking into this area of spirituality and you're like, okay, well, I've been called to go here for a while. You've been putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. Go. You need to go because there's codes, there's activations, there's a reason why you're being called. The land calls to you. It's just like, how long are you going to keep putting it off? You know, before you're just like, okay, I'm going to answer the distress call already, or whatever kind of call it is. Maybe it's an adventurous call. There are all kinds of different reasons, but you will feel it come inside and you'll just know. And then it's like about getting information. For me, I have a ton of resources that I go to, not only studying Asha work, Lisa Renee, but there are an entire library of grid worker books that you can get. I mean, even maps, like, okay, this is one of my favorite books ever for grid working. Okay, History of the World map by map. And this is just a Smithsonian book, but this like has every war that's happened on the planet and has laid it out like via a map that you can look at all of the countries that were involved, all of the races, all the lines, all of the routes they took, all of the most major important fundamental things that happened and took place. So it's about researching, getting information, getting knowledge. And I think you start to find like, where is my place and where are my interests in this? So there are different indigo types that define that. And this was one of the big things that we went over
Yeah, we
last
were going
time.
over the indigo
Yes.
types. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it,
we
it
went
was
over
a
that.
three major ones, or no?
I've kind of decoded four.
Four.
And then
Okay.
even in the facilitator course we just did, the students were asking, well, I think there's five. And so there's probably, we could define a whole bunch of different types and roles within it. But the type ones, do you want me to briefly?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Quick review.
Type ones are definitely like the standard grid worker type. Like they are more so holding the ability to access ley lines, clear ley lines. They're very called to sacred sites and vortices. Like they're the very active grid worker type. Our type twos, they're more of like our land healers and land shamans, and they work a lot better within group dynamics. So because they're more of a healer aspect, they'll be kind of like a medic on the field, so to speak. So they can like heal other people while they're grid working and then also heal the land. And then the type threes are the like polarity and duality extractors and our transmuters. They're the ones that are more on the rescue and recovery missions. I do find these types to be more masculine types, with more of like an Orion background, or like an Aquilin star system connection, like something like this. But women also can take these roles. I also consider myself to be an indigo type 3. It just depends. I think women, because of the merge of other things that we like to do, like our healing, like we'll go indigo like type 2 or 1. But I think for you to be a very well-rounded grid worker overall, you're going to have to embody each type at some point and kind of train through the energy of each one essentially, and work through that. The type 4, they're kind of like, they're like an embodied one, but they're more evolved in the sense that they're definitely vision holders to the new earth. And they're the ones that bring forward a lot of the prophecy, a lot of the vision, and they sustain the fabrics that are in which building that new earth. So they do step up more in the leadership roles and the indigo types in the grid working dynamics is what I have found.
Awesome. All right. Mark has his hand up. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, and one thing to remember is that we are the tools, us being the portals to the higher energies and the star seeds and so forth. But in terms of star seeds, I had a question, since you've done a lot of work on star seed type stuff. I'm familiar with, typical humanoid star seeds like Palladian and Syrian and so forth, and then also insect, like spider and mantis beings and stuff. But have you ever come across fungi star seeds, where there's like fungi beings?
Interesting. I am aware that there is a fungi kingdom. But I haven't met any fungi beings or fungi starseeds. So it wouldn't surprise me. I'm sure that there is. I know there's many races that don't have a name here yet. Like they are just beginning to awaken, I guess, in some ways, and the expansion of their collective work here and what they're bringing to humanity. And some of them have, biological time markers within their genetic design and how they seed it into whatever hybridization program they came from, like when they're actually supposed to manifest and come forward on the planet for whatever their work is supposed to be and whatever timelines they're supposed to work and seed in. So do you feel like you're a fungi starseed?
No, but my wife does. I mean, she's been told that she's new to the planet by Vivian Chauvet, but was not told what race. And one thing that's interesting too is that humans apparently have more DNA in common with fungi than with plants on the planet.
Hmm. It's interesting. It would make sense, and I don't want to compare this to cancer so much, but I heard that cancer was an aspect of fungi or an aspect of even like what's the white yeast? Like these things are very connected to the way that like decomposition or like degeneration within the cellular structures are taking place in the body. I'm wondering if these fungi consciousness spirits will come forward to reveal some sort of like health revolution or something. That's just kind of what I was getting as I was tuning in to that.
Well, yeah, and they're the core for the Earth. I mean, they set up the original life grid on the planet, decomposing the rocks into the soil, and of course, and they're
Yeah.
constantly decomposing and recycling life on the planet. So they're a real core aspect of that, and then create a whole network of life, the mycelial network that's all across the planet too. So
It's
yeah.
a network I haven't tapped into too much, but I know it's one that it's going to be very vast, full of lots of information and technology when I maybe finally have the space to really tune into it. But yeah, I think a lot of this might be coming forward as the golden forest activate, more of like the earth kingdoms activate. And maybe this is what we're clearing and making way for these things to come in. Like it's all working together cohesively. So it's like we have our frontliners out there, like extracting the mechanical machinery in the dark forces and making and paving way for like our organic revival to come forward, where we can restore these like truly higher evolutionary because that's kind of what is happening is the higher heavens will merge into this reality more as we become more new earth-based consciousness, society, culture, all of it. So it could be that we're setting the stage for the advancement of these new races to come forward. I think, yeah, that's sounds
Yeah, in
like
the
it.
case of my wife, when no one told her anything, she connected with that consciousness, and then she's like, "Oh, these are my people." So,
Interesting. I do know that, well, because mushrooms are fungi, right?
Yeah.
right.
I do notice that the mushrooms are definitely a spirit of their own, and I think they come to heal for people. I've had a lot of friends tap into just using them as where you take just a little bit at a time. What's that called?
Microdosing.
Microdosing. Yeah, well, they'll microdose for certain periods of time just to heal components of their spirit body for some time. And then once those things are healed, the mushrooms go away. But like they work to restore us, definitely.
Yeah, and actually that makes sense because they do it organically and spiritually, now that you mention it, which would make sense since everything is always energy first.
Yeah,
The physical's
very
just
cool.
the
Yeah,
energy.
I'm a big fan of the mushroom consciousness. It's definitely been a guide for me in the past, and not so much these days, but I like to tap into that once a year or so. So yeah, have love to meet your
They
wife someday.
really cleanse our mental fields. They really do. They go in and they kind of clear all of the interconnecting quantum fire that runs within the synapses of the brain. Like I really think this is where it heals, like, and cleanses when you take like deeper doses of it. Because some of the experience I've even had with it too, it was like microdosing just a little bit, and it opens up a layer, and then you come back and microdose again, it opens up another layer, you come and microdose again, and then it goes deeper into the brain pattern and waves, and it's like cleansing that. So it's working through the systems of the body. It goes right to where it needs to go first and starts. It's interesting. Yeah.
Totally. Cool. Mark, are you good?
Yep. Thank you.
Wanted to ask a question from Ben here. He's asking, what advice could you share for those living in the US to assist in neutralizing the traumatic energies that linger within the land?
For the US?
Yeah, so I guess whether you go there physically or if you can, because I know you, just like, I guess, for example, the work you were doing with the Vatican, even though you weren't on site, so to say, you could still energetically go in and neutralize things. How does that work? What are you doing there?
Well, for the US, I mean, I would go to a lot of like trauma sites for sure. I mean, depending on what kind of assignment or mission you want to take, but I mean, the 9/11 site would be a great place to work on, obviously, starting with trauma sites, where we've had some forms of devastation. I think also we need to go into the descending cities, you know, cities that are definitely like the highest homeless populations, and
Right.
the fentanyl crisis and drug abuse. I mean, this is what a reversal harvesting hijacked city is. I mean, this is what it is. This is where all of our indigos and our highly sensitive people have basically lost the battle. This is what it looks like. So going into these cities and spiritually working where they're literally just harvesting souls, you know.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in there? Yeah, no, just on the back of my question, 100%. That's sort of where I was lost for 30 years, and now in recovery, like coming up a year and a half. And I work with other alcoholics and drug addicts and blah blah blah, and seeing their lights come on, you know, because that whole program, the AA program, is about a spiritual awakening. I'd love to know what Bill Wilson, the guy who wrote the AA book, if there's some sort of higher channeling or something that he had, because the whole book, it literally says it's about a spiritual awakening, going into the fourth dimension. This book was written in 1938, you know, and he's talking about fourth dimension and chat, you know, and yeah, insane. So yeah, just on my path, I know, you know, I just wanted to give up booze. I didn't want to give up booze and drink and drugs and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But and then it's led me down this path, and now I work with others and seeing them, you know, just get their families back and stuff like that. And you know, people, you know, nobody wants to hear about gods, but then, you know, because Bill Wilson in that book says, you know, it's a God of your understanding, infinite creator, spirit of the universe, call it what you want. And it's an amazing, you know, so that's what I'm doing now, you know, on the side of my own real job. But yeah, but yeah, and I just didn't know how far I needed to take it, you know, you know, or maybe I'm now you've said that, I feel like I'm in the right place, you know, in trying to just wake people up there on the ground, you know. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think those of us that are meant to awaken and ascend, there's a reason for it. One is because genetically we are more susceptible to all of the negative influences, right? Like electromagnetic radiation, the poisons and toxins in our food and water. This weakens our biofield. As the light body weakens, we're more susceptible to penetration by the dark forces and also attachment. So things like the addiction and all of this, like this is the degradation process of that, basically. And so, yes, it's hard to look at. It's hard to look at all of it and take, you know, a deeper understanding and have a broader lens and bring it all to the surface. But these are harvesting sites. They're called Trinity sites, basically. It's where they are harvesting the souls and they're using it for their reincarnation matrix traps. Also, they're using the Loosh energy to power the anti-life reversal energies and also the beast machines. It's all like a biofeedback network of harvested and loosed energy in which powers all of the negative systems. So as individuals, it's like, where do we start? Because it's just like it's like a whole network of a mess. But yeah, this is where the organization of all it and the compartmentalization comes in as well to the total reparation. But yeah, we need to start in our harvested cities. And the thing is that the negative technology around those things are so severe too, because the frequency fences are the strongest there. This is where the most mind control is taking place. This is where people are actually more entrapped in reality spheres of those frequency fences. They like cannot see beyond that. And there's also a lot of amnesic technology that's being ran through, like probably even forms of like sound weapons. Yeah, high levels of propaganda, you know, just all the ways in which that works out. But basically, people who would be, let's say there's two people like in the same city and they're in a descending hub. They're in one of those harvesting locations because they both might be in a different frequency fence. It literally renders them invisible to the other people. So this is how like you can look at how people are simultaneously living like across the street from like a total devastation site. Well, this person's sitting on the street with like everything they've ever wanted, but they can't even like see what's going on over here because the frequency fence is keeping them from opening up and they're under mind control. So there's a lot that has to be dismantled in those descending cities. Unfortunately, I think the dark military plays a huge role in this, especially along the coastal regions. If we talk about things like star forts, this was one thing we talked about in the course, was star forts is originally a galactic technology, an architectural technology that was given to humanity to help us build our structural reality, our 3D reality into a new Earth, like consciousness and timeline, an ascended timeline. But because it was hijacked by military forces in the 14th, 15th, and 16th century, they then used the star forts for defender forces. And this is what's kind of propagated all along the coastal regions, especially in the United States on the East Coast. It's very inundated.
I've just had a look at star forts in London, and yeah, there's one in Tilbury, which is also on the East Coast, which is our East Coast. Yeah, so but that's the closest one we've got in London, which is a heritage spot and a tourist place. So you can go and still go in there, and it still all exists. Built in the 1500s. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, those need to be reactivated. Things like star forts are celestial star architecture that people like us, Starseeds, could access these types of architectural structures, and we can actually portal and anchor more celestial energy into the land to actually heal the land and open up our galactic consciousness and our evolved consciousness here because of the geomancy that's running in them and because of the somatics, and also the ability to open up passageways because sound healing would be much more dynamically expressed in those architectural walls. So yeah, it's a huge resource of untapped gridworker technology that we're just starting to like incorporate more and more, but there's like almost like a veil of destruction and a veil of deception that we have to clear off of the star forts to be able to utilize and generate this positive technology that we can use to help everything within the US.
What would you do? What would you do in it? I mean, I'm going to be with theoretically with a tourist group. We're going to start going into deep meditation while I'm walking around this heritage site. Yeah, I don't.
I would grid it. I would work to grid it. I would just work as best as you can to clear the energy there, and by that it would be like research it before you go. What happened at this place? Was there actual invader attacks that took place here? Was this a part of some World War timeline that came through? You know, were there negative races and invader races that came, you know, kind of decode that, because you'll want to speak into those consciousness and you'll want to speak into those timelines directly to extract it out of the architecture to help heal it and heal the land in which it's serving. Because if you can activate the positive energy in the star fort, it will work within the land codes to restore the land.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, it's England, you know, so yeah, and Europe isn't
Yeah.
far, so yeah, it
Yeah.
was in every war, yeah, but yeah, no, lovely, thanks
Then
for
you
that.
might want to do an all war clearing in them,
Yeah,
like cover all the wars. Yeah.
yeah, I've already, yeah, I'll have a look and I'll see what I can do. Try and spread the
Okay,
love.
I believe in you. You got this.
Speaking of England, Sophia, you're up.
Yeah, Wales, actually. And you
Wales,
mentioned,
okay.
yeah, you
All
mentioned
right.
about it being defender-site,
Yeah.
activate defender-site or whatever. I'm curious to know more about that. And then I've got another question about I've had a mineral spring pop up in my street, like the little laneway that I work in. Like there's literally a rock pool that's emerged from under the road of this mineral spring that's running continuously down the street out the front of my house now. And it's amazing. And I wondered if you had any insight on that. But yeah, they were my two questions.
Well, with Wales, I think the dragon is like their national animal, like it's on their coat of arms. I mean, in terms of like your connection to it, I would honestly do maybe something with your own ancestry and grid your ancestry a little bit. Like how much of your ancestry is encoded to the land? How much, you know, where were you born? Where do you live now? Where do you work? Kind of grid and kind of get a detailed understanding of what like your network and what your genetic code is serving in terms of the land. And then I would work to clear that first with recollecting and healing any dragon parts, because it might be a part of your soul mission to do that specifically. And that's why you were born there, is to be a part of like dragon restoration, dragon healing. That, and then what was your other question again? I'm sorry.
It's just I moved to this place about 6 months ago, and in the last couple of months, a literal like mineral spring has popped up in the middle of the asphalt on this little laneway that I live in, and they've tried to drill down and they've created a rock pool, like a mineral rock pool, while they've been trying to figure out what's going on. And this mineral spring is literally just running down the street, which is
wouldn't have happened to recently gotten pregnant or trying to get pregnant or just nothing like that. A springs a lot of times will represent fertility. So it could be something with rebirth, death and rebirth, you know, with it being connected to the rocks and the minerals, you know, it could be just an organic resource really for you to tune into and kind of expand that resource and that healing to any area that might be, you know, an area that you feel needs to be cleared. So yeah, I would just meditate with that one a little bit and tune into it and see what comes forward and see how you can connect it into the work that you're doing, you know, locally or within, you know, your own house, even like how you can use it to pull the healing energy into around your environment. But I'd have to tune into it more. You might want to scan into it and see where that goes down into. Does it, is it coming up from an even deeper cavern or water aquifer up underneath the ground? Because if so, I mean, it could be opening up a new vortex or a portal there as well. Yeah, that's what I would
tap into, literally.
Yeah, tap into it and see for sure. Sounds awesome.
It is pretty awesome. I love I just look out the window, I'm just watching mineral water just like flow down the gutter of the street. So, but yeah, it's just flowing continuously, which is actually really lovely.
Minerals were coming up in the last remote session we did around, it was helping us restore the black hole energy, like the wormhole energy, like the minerals were. So that might be a connection point to something for you with especially if you can get more into decoding where you're located in accordance to maybe any major megalithic sites. I would maybe kind of do that. See if you can connect more of your organic resources, because I do know that there's a lot of black hole energy definitely in Europe overall. And I think there's a battle of dragons that plays out on that land between like the white dragons and the red dragons, right? Like those two go at it. Okay.
All against England, just saying. But yeah,
Okay.
there's definitely a lot of dragons around here for sure. Yeah, I'm not super tapped into it, but I've even had a couple of conversations with them, so they are around. Yeah,
I'd say having conversations with dragons means you're tapped into it. That's not everybody who does that.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. Well, cool. Well, we're coming to our time here, so we'll kind of wind it down. But as usual, plethora of information and wonderful stuff coming through. What's next on your radar? Where are you headed with your integrations and realizations and your work?
Right now, I think I'm going to focus more on those global defender systems and see what comes forward. I still feel like I need to tune into them and channel a lot more information around those. I will be doing a boots on the ground mission in September down to Kauai, Hawaii, and possibly Easter Islands if they open up. But that will be a mission in which I'm inviting other grid workers to come and join me on. So people can sign up for that Kauai mission in September at learn.indigoangel222.com if they feel interested. If you feel like doing that mission with me, though, I would suggest taking either my Gridwork Facilitator 1 or 2.0 course, just so you can get the bulk of the information, studies, and just feel like, you know, you have all of your adequate resources and knowledge to feel like you can come in and do this work with us. But I'm always, you know, open to like helping people, guiding people, and then, you know, hosting the big sessions so that way people can really get the experience as well. So we're going to be doing that in September. I think my next thing now is I have to take a little bit of a step back from teaching live courses and start focusing on some of my publications of my work, because right now I'm sitting on a mountain of writing that's just if I don't start doing some of that, I don't know what's going to happen. I need to focus on that part. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that as long as still taking individual healing sessions. I still do, you know, deep chakra clearings with people. I still like to do my implant and seal removal sessions, as I think those are vital to getting your ascension codes and your DNA and your spirit body, you know, all into the place that it needs to be aligned to really do the grid worker work. So I work on it from all different levels of trying to help people get to where they need and want to be, and then also coming back to myself to try to develop my own personal endeavors as well.
Awesome. Well, keep us posted. I'm gonna post all your links here. We've been posting them in the chat, but we'll post them in the description below so people can check out your work directly and stay tuned to your constant travels and work. And it's awesome. I've been following. I've sort of fallen off a little lately because I've been doing my own sort of quest to get to Japan here, which I'll probably be reaching out to you to get some information about there's a lot of talking about minerals and ley lines and energetic spots. Japan is a hot spot, and they what's really cool is they embrace it as a culture. There's actually books on power spots and energetic spots that you can get at your local bookstore and things. So they're quite open about that stuff there. Some other things are closed off on, some other things are open, but yes, I plan to go deeper into that work when I get there. So I'll probably be reaching out for some advice and help once I get there.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome. I'd love to. I think too, if anyone wants to join on any smaller remote missions too. I do them once a month on my Patreon too. So we'll host one of the ones coming up. Now that you talk about Japan, it made me think about that. That's why I'm mentioning it. Is I think we're going to be working on North Korea soon.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be an intense one, but I think it's needed. So.
Yeah, Asia as a whole, it's an interesting. I was in Taiwan as well on this trip, and just to see the differences in the themes that come up as the collective, different collectives and the cultures and sort of things that I feel Japan and Asia has a lot of. They've already worked through a lot of the stuff that Westerners are kind of working through, and then vice versa. Westerners have worked through a lot of things that the Asian cultures still need to work through. So bringing them together, and I think we can heal each other's wounds there and help move a lot of the stagnant energy, because by looking at it from different perspectives, from the East and West perspectives, there's positives to both. So
yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me here today. I just really appreciate coming and talking with you and everyone. And yeah, it's so much fun. So
awesome.
Hopefully we can do it again.
We will, for sure. We won't wait as long. So thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Okay, take care, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.